Hi, and welcome to Freak Boy Runs. Or maybe, if I'm fortunate, welcome back to Freak Boy Runs. Today, I want to talk about the power of being a quitter. And no, I'm not talking about quitting when things get tough. I'm talking about quitting things that are tough. And I already know that this will be a bit controversial for some. So let me say right now, I'm not saying everyone needs to quit these same things. I am saying at least one of them everyone needs to quit. But as for the rest of them, these are just things that have helped me in my effort to become more fit. So, come along with me while I run and talk about being a quitter. My first example of being a quitter, I think, will probably not be controversial. I think virtually everyone can agree that you should quit smoking if you're a smoker. Now, that's something I actually did almost 25 years ago. So it's not specifically part of my current fitness journey. But I want to talk about it, A, because I think it's important to get that message out, and B, it kind of relates to my streaks in a way, the way I quit smoking. When I quit smoking, the way I looked at it was after I had a certain amount of time that I had quit. I think it was probably around 30 days. I decided, well, that's 30 days in the bank. And if I start now, I just spend it all. It's gone. Everything I've saved in that bank is gone. And that kind of motivated me to keep going. And that's similar to the way I managed the streaks. Once my streaks got to a certain level, then I really wanted to conserve them and not lose all that time that I put in to getting them to that point. So I don't know if that would work for everyone or even anyone. Maybe it's just my bizarre brain that works that way. But that's the way I quit smoking. I didn't want to spend what I had in the bank. Another thing I put in my past was booze. Now, quitting booze was kind of a interesting story for me, because when I initially quit, it seemed like it was almost by accident. I just found myself one day thinking about it and realizing that it had been 2 months since I'd had anything alcoholic to drink. And I thought, well, that's a good thing. I gotta keep that up. I think what I didn't realize at the time, but what I have come to realize now, is I think it was my subconscious somehow helping me to quit something that I needed to quit. Booze really wasn't my friend. Sorry, I'm gonna move the camera as I change angles here so I don't get a shadow on my face. But it really was not my friend, especially considering that I was dealing with depression, and booze is a depressant. It's something that really was controlling my life a little bit too much, and I needed to get rid of. And the longer I was away from it, the more I realized how much I needed to be away from it. But I don't know, I would say it was maybe within about 6 months after I quit drinking that I decided to start my 20,000 steps a day streak. And then it did become part of my fitness journey. Because I'll tell you right now, there were many days while I was drinking that I had a hangover that would have absolutely prevented me from getting out there and doing 20,000 steps. So that definitely worked in my favor and continues to this day to work in my favor, because with marathon training, it's really not possible to manage a marathon training plan if you're going to be dealing with hangovers, or even not even hangovers, if you're going to be dealing with just the general lethargy you might have after having only a few drinks, which, as you get older, many of you may know, affect you more and more the day after. So it's definitely something to think about if you're considering doing any kind of endurance training or fitness, that alcohol won't be your friend in those endeavors. I'm not saying to be fit you have to quit drinking, but it's definitely something that you need to do in moderation if you want to be serious about fitness. My next example of how being a quitter worked in my favor, many of you may disagree with, and that's okay. It's not for everyone, but it definitely worked for me, and that is I quit eating meat. In fact, I became a vegan, which is quitting all animal products. In reality, I call myself a vegetarian because while I do believe in the health benefits and animal rights aspects of veganism, there's also a practicality that when you go to restaurants, you're not always going to find vegan options. When you go out to someone's house for dinner, it may be rude to insist on a vegan option, but vegetarian options are almost always available. So that's the way I work it, and I found that I felt so much better almost immediately after taking up a vegan diet. It just really seemed to help me in a lot of different ways physiologically. I won't go into all of those, but just let's say that I felt better. And so I stuck with it. I thought, if this made me feel this much better this quickly, it's worthwhile doing. And I won't sugarcoat it. It was a little tough at the beginning. And even to this day, it can be a challenge to resist the smell of bacon or a steak cooking on the grill. Those things still smell pretty delicious, but I resist, and I'm better off for it. And I want to thank my lovely and loving niece for being the one to turn me on to veganism 6 years ago. Jory, you're the best, and thank you for doing that. All right, well, this next one absolutely has the potential to be super controversial, and I don't really mean it to be, because this is an item that actually I don't recommend for everyone at all. It can actually be beneficial to a runner, but I had to give it up for different reasons. I had to give up drinking coffee. Now, I know many people, including myself at one time, can't start their day without that morning cup of coffee. And I was that way for a very long time. But the problem for me was that I couldn't drink coffee black. I just can't do it. I tried, and I just can't do it black. I've got to have a sweetener, and I've got to have some sort of cream. And just the extra calories from the sweetener alone, I just wanted to do without. So I eventually decided the easiest thing for me was going to be to quit coffee. Now, caffeine is actually a legal performance enhancing drug for runners. 100% legal. And a lot of runners use it. And in fact, you find it in many gels as well. So it's not that I was anti-caffeine or anti-coffee, but all those calories from the sugar that I had to have in the coffee, otherwise I couldn't drink it, I just needed to do without those calories. So I quit coffee. Please don't hate me. The next one was maybe the toughest of all. It's related to quitting coffee, because my weakness for sugar went well beyond coffee. I had a general sweet tooth. I love chocolate, M&Ms, ice cream. Oh my God. I can't stop when it comes to ice cream. So I really had to dig deep and do my best to cut sugar out completely. And I've pretty much got it gone from my diet, at least processed sugar. The only unnatural sugar that I get today is what's in peanut butter, and I'm still allowing that. But all other sugar I just had to do away with. And the way to do that was just to not go down the aisle that has all that stuff in the grocery store. I just stay away from it and I don't look at it. And I don't go down the ice cream aisle. And now the only sugar I get is from the fruits that I eat. And really, in a way, those fruits have become my snacks. Those have become my treats. And they taste as good to me now as a chocolate bar might have used to tasted. Now, I'm not going to try and fool anybody. Nothing tastes as good as ice cream. But that's just a cross that I'll have to bear. So, for those of you with a sweet tooth, I empathize. I know it can be tough. But trust me when I say that the fruits will taste so much better after some time, and you may not end up missing it that much. Going somewhat hand in hand with cutting out sugar was cutting out junk food in general. That's not to say that I don't indulge in French fries from time to time. I treat myself to an Impossible Burger or a Beyond Burger once in a while. I do that. But since I'm not going down the sweets aisle in the grocery store, I don't go down the junk food aisle in general. So there's no potato chips, there's no Cheetos, there's none of that stuff. For a while I was hanging on to pretzels, thinking they were a healthy option. Man, those things had a lot of calories. So I had to give those up. And now, the only kind of salty treat I get are cashews, mixed nuts, things like that, almonds. But I view those as a pretty healthy option, so I'm allowing it. But the rest of the junk food, I just stay away from. And if it's not in the house, it's not that hard to resist because it's just not there. So the tough part is just avoiding those aisles in the grocery store. I successfully quit a couple of things that are very closely related, so I'll talk about them together. First was just watching sports on TV. I decided that I was spending just altogether too much time watching other people do sports on TV. And while I admit it's fun to watch these elite athletes do spectacular things on the football field or on the ice in the hockey rink, whatever, it takes a lot of time to watch that. And I'd rather spend that time doing a sport myself rather than watching other people do a sport that I really can't do. So I'm focusing that time on my own athleticism instead of someone else's athleticism. And in keeping with that theme of not wanting to spend time watching sports on TV, I really just decided that TV in general was a waste of time. And now I could just barely stand having regular TV on. know, I still entertain myself with things like Netflix, HBO Max, whatever, YouTube, obviously. But watching regular TV with all those commercials, all that stuff, all that corporate bullcrap being put in your face, just constantly and unrelentingly, I just find it gross. I'm sorry. I just can't stand it, having been away from it now for quite a few years. So quitting watching sports on TV, and then eventually quitting watching TV eventually freed up a lot of time for me to be able to focus on myself and focus on my own fitness. Well, that's all I've got for this week. It's time for me to quit. Did you see what I did there? Anyway, I'll wrap it up for now. If you enjoyed the video though, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you really care, comment and share. And until next time, on Freak Boy Runs. Freak Boy out!